They laughed at him the moment he stepped into the marble lobby, though none of them thought of it as laughter at first. It was the kind of polite amusement reserved for someone who didn't belong, the subtle smirks exchanged between people who believed they owned the space simply by wearing the right clothes. The chandelier above cast warm light on polished floors, reflecting designer shoes and tailored suits, while his worn jacket absorbed the glow without returning it. He paused just long enough to take in the room, not with awe, but with quiet familiarity, as if he had seen it all before in another life. He approached the front desk, setting his travel bag gently at his feet. The receptionist looked up slowly, her eyes scanning him from head to toe before settling somewhere just above his shoulder, as though meeting his gaze would be a waste of effort. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, already prepared to dismiss him. "I'd like a room for the night," he said, his voice calm, measured, free of urgency. She didn't bother checking the system. "We're fully booked," she replied, too quickly, a rehearsed line sharpened by disinterest. He nodded once, as if considering something. "That's odd," he said. "This hotel usually keeps rooms open." Her lips tightened. "Sir, we host international guests. High-profile clients. Perhaps you should try somewhere more suitable." A few people nearby turned to watch, curiosity blooming. A man in an expensive watch chuckled softly. The receptionist straightened in her chair, emboldened by the attention. "If you don't have a reservation, there's nothing I can do." "This is my hotel," he said gently, without raising his voice. The sentence hung in the air for a moment before dissolving into laughter. Not loud, not cruel, but dismissive. The kind that erased a person rather than confronted them. A tall manager emerged from behind a glass door, his expression already annoyed, as if inconvenienced by the mere presence of a problem. "What seems to be the issue?" the manager asked, though his eyes had already decided. "This man is claiming ownership," the receptionist said, rolling her eyes. The manager smiled thinly. "Sir, impersonation is a serious matter. We pride ourselves on exclusivity here." The man reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, slightly scratched keycard, placing it on the counter with care. The logo engraved on it was unmistakable, though few employees had ever seen that version before. "I don't need exclusivity," he said quietly. "I need honesty." The manager didn't even glance at the card. "Security," he called out. "Please remove him." As hands closed around his arms, whispers spread through the lobby, phones discreetly lifting to capture the moment. The man did not resist. He simply looked back at the desk, at the people who had already forgotten his face. "Tonight," he said calmly, "this place will remember me." They pushed him out into the cold night, unaware that they had just turned away the very foundation beneath their feet. The rain had begun to fall harder by the time he stepped away from the glowing entrance, each drop striking the pavement with quiet insistence. Cars passed without slowing, their lights streaking across the wet street, while inside the hotel the music continued and glasses clinked, as if nothing of importance had happened. He stood there for a moment, letting the rain soak into his jacket, not out of weakness but out of resolve. Humiliation had been offered to him publicly, but he had learned long ago that patience, when paired with power, was far more dangerous than anger. He walked a short distance down the street and stopped beneath an awning. From his pocket, he took out his phone, an older model, cracked at the corner. He scrolled through contacts few people knew existed and pressed one name. The call was answered before the first ring finished. "They denied you, didn't they?" the voice on the other end asked quietly. "Yes," he replied, exactly as expected. There was a brief pause. "Do you want me to wake the board?" "Wake everyone," he said. "But do it cleanly." He ended the call and looked back at the towering building. Behind its glass walls were years of decisions he had once made personally, values he had written into contracts, promises he had believed would outlive him. Somewhere along the way, those promises had been replaced with arrogance. Tonight, he would correct that. Less than an hour later, the first black SUV pulled up. Then another, and another. The rain slowed as if the city itself was holding its breath. Guests near the entrance watched in confusion as sharply dressed men and women stepped out, their expressions serious, their movements precise. No laughter followed them, no casual chatter. Only purpose. Inside, the manager was mid-conversation with a wealthy guest when the front doors opened again. Security stiffened. The receptionist's fingers froze over the keyboard. The board of directors entered without hesitation, followed by legal advisors and auditors carrying briefcases thick with documents. "What is going on?" the manager asked, his confidence cracking. One of the directors didn't look at him. "Lock the doors." The man from earlier walked in last. "Dry now. Calm." His presence changed the air instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. Smiles vanished. The receptionist recognized him and felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "This is impossible," the manager whispered. The man stepped forward, his voice steady. "I come unannounced because truth hides from ceremony. Tonight, you showed me everything I needed to see." He gestured lightly, and the auditors moved. Screens were set up, footage played, security videos of staff mocking guests, recordings of bribes accepted, complaints buried instead of resolved. Each revelation struck harder than the last. The manager tried to speak, but no words would form. "You didn't just deny me a room," the man said quietly. "You denied what this place was built to represent." Papers were signed on the spot. Access cards were revoked. The manager was escorted out through the same doors he had once ruled, his reflection fading in the glass. The man turned back to the lobby, now silent and trembling. "This is not revenge," he said. "This is correction." And everyone knew the night was far from over. Morning arrived without ceremony, slipping through the tall windows in pale ribbons of light. The lobby, once loud with confidence and careless pride, now felt restrained, almost reverent. Every employee stood straighter, spoke softer, moved with intention. News of what had happened during the night had spread faster than any official memo ever could. Power had shifted, and everyone could feel it. The man walked through the hotel slowly, not as an owner inspecting property, but as an architect revisiting a structure he once imagined in detail. He passed the restaurant where chefs paused mid-motion when they recognized him, the concierge desk where new supervisors nervously rehearsed perfect manners, the hallway where a housekeeper quietly wiped away tears after being thanked for the first time in years. In a small conference room, the remaining management waited. Some looked ashamed, others afraid, a few quietly relieved. The man stood at the head of the table, his hands resting lightly on the surface. "This hotel was never meant to intimidate," he said. "It was meant to protect. To welcome." Somewhere along the way, fear replaced service. No one interrupted. "I don't believe in destroying institutions," he continued. "I believe in restoring them." He announced immediate changes: transparent hiring, anonymous guest feedback reviewed by an external team, employee councils with real authority. Salaries were adjusted, contracts rewritten. Those who had suffered silently were offered positions of trust. Those who had abused power were dismissed without spectacle, their influence ending quietly but completely. By late morning, journalists waited outside, hungry for scandal. The man chose silence. He knew the lesson would travel further without his name attached to it. Let people wonder. Let hotels everywhere think twice. Before leaving, he returned to the front desk. A new receptionist stood there, nervous but attentive. He placed the old keycard on the counter one last time. "Keep it," he said. "Not as a symbol of ownership, but as a reminder." She nodded, understanding more than words could express. As he stepped out into the daylight, the city moved on around him, unaware of how close arrogance had come to rotting something valuable beyond repair. He blended back into the crowd, just another man with a simple jacket and a quiet stride. But inside the hotel, the story would be told for years, not of a rich man's revenge, but of a night when humility returned wearing ordinary clothes, and power revealed itself only when it was finally too late to laugh.